In this short video, I'm going to share with you 10 ways you can start in property with either no money or very little money. Hi, my name is Mark Lloyd. I'm co-founder of Property Master Academy and an investor for over 15 years. Now, one of the best ways of no money down investing is with joint ventures. So what is a joint venture? Well, a joint venture is a trade-off of skills, money, knowledge. It could be, for example, a joint venture partner provides the money, you provide the knowledge and skill, and perhaps participate in the project. But that's the main way where you're really sharing whatever happens on that project. The second way, it's often referred to as a joint venture, is actually a loan, where similar principles, you're getting someone else to contribute the money and you'll pay them a fixed rate of return. Now, these are the only two true ways of no money down investing for you. But there are a number of other ways where you have a small amount of money invested to help get that ideal low money down investment. So the first one of those is lease options. What's a lease option? Well, a lease option is where you agree a price on something that you pay for it at a future date. And in the meantime, you have the opportunity to lease that property. So an example might be you agree to buy a property in, say, 5 years' time for £100,000, but in the meantime, you can rent out that property. So you benefit from the immediate cash flow, but you're not having to purchase the property right at the very beginning. Now, whilst this is often referred to as a strategy of buying a house for £1, that's technically not correct. Yes, you have to exchange at least £1 for the contract to be valid, but of course there will be solicitors' costs involved as well. And you'd need to allow probably £1,000, £1,500, depending on where you are in the country, to make this work. Following on from lease options is rent to rent. Now, rent to rent is essentially half of a lease option. It's the lease part of the lease option contract. And rent to rent is also a very low cash input strategy. Works differently to a lease option because you're only dealing with the lease aspect, but your input capital can range from zero up to probably somewhere between £3,000 and £5,000 per property. So again, a very low input cash strategy. Next is bridging finance. Now, bridging finance is often described as a very expensive way of borrowing, but in fact it can be a very good way for the right deal. If you've got the right deal, and I'm going to talk about exceptional deal here, you can get 100% funding in certain parts of the country. So again, a potentially no money down deal scenario, but of course there will be some costs there. There will be valuation costs, there will be solicitors' costs. So it's not a total no money down, but very little money down. Next, let's look at vendor finance. What is vendor finance? Well, it's a way where the vendor of the property will help finance your purchase. Now, I know it may sound really, really strange, but it is a technique not well used and not well known, I should say, but once you understand it, it could open another door when you're trying to conclude a deal. So the way it works is very simple. You've got a vendor that is looking to sell their property, but they have no immediate home for that cash. It's just a sale and they're going to park it in a bank or a bond or something like that. You could potentially negotiate with them where they instead use that money to lend to you to complete the purchase. So again, another potential no money down deal, but of course you still have costs there unless you've managed to get the investor to cover those too. Next, we have crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding has grown substantially over the past 4 or 5 years and is now a very large industry in competition to the banks and bridging companies. But what is crowdfunding? Well, crowdfunding is a method of matching investors with borrowers. So you as an investor could invest, let's say, £1,000 into a project to participate in that project, and the borrower is looking to raise whatever amount of money it may need for that particular project. So you get to participate and the borrower gets their project funded. And that's the way crowdfunding generally works. There's a number of different models. Some are just on a loan basis, some can be equity, some can be a hybrid. We of course run a crowdfunding platform that offers those alternatives. How many of you have a pension? How many of you have a pension tied up? Well, pensions can also be another route to investing in property without accessing your own money. A popular method at the moment is SAS pensions. I haven't got time on this video to go into depth into a SAS pension, but suffice to say it's potentially a way where you can borrow money from your pension fund to invest in property. Next, we have creating equity in the deal. Now, This is quite a strange one if you've not heard this before. It works really, really well in commercial property. So for example, the way that commercial property is valued is really totally different to the way residential property is valued. Residential property just based on the market value, the bricks and mortar. But a commercial property is not. An empty commercial property is worth far less than an occupied commercial property that has a good tenant. So, for example, you could find an empty commercial property, agree an option to purchase that property, and at the same time agree for a long-term tenant to go into that property. Then once you do that and agree some terms with that tenant, that adds value to the property almost immediately and can create a no money down type transaction. Next we have land. Now, similar to the commercial property, land, empty land, there's nothing on it, is next to worthless. But once you have planning and something built on that land, then it creates value. Now, you don't have to build the property to get that value, you just need to get planning. And the cost of that planning can vary depending on the size of the plot. So it's a little money in or not much money in type of strategy where you can create exceptional value, often in excess of 6 figures for a relatively low cash input. And the very last way I want to mention of getting started in property with very little money is one of my most favourite strategies of all, and that is property sourcing. It's a kind of strategy that virtually anybody can do with the right training and obviously making sure that you're compliant. But your startup costs are very, very low. To become compliant, somewhere around about £1,000, £1,200. Then of course you've got your marketing budget and so on. So exceptionally low money in strategy to help you get started. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this video and some of those strategies you may be able to use yourself. If you have used them already, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if not, comment on some of the other strategies if you want some more information. Also, take a look around the videos that are now appearing on your screen, as these will help you progress in your property journey.